vestibulo-ocular reflex is concerned with what? Which part of the cerebellum? It is the flocculo-nodular lobe which is important for the vestibulo-ocular reflex. So if you look at the vestibulo-cerebellar pathway, there are vestibular nuclei. Once more, tell me, doctor. Very happy to see 74 online students in the today's class. So, give me the board. In the brainstem, you have midbrain, pons, and medulla. Third, fourth cranial nuclei are there in midbrain. 5, 6, 7 is in pons. 8, 9, 10, everything is there in the medulla. This 8th is called vestibulo-cochlear nucleus. Right? So, vestibulo-cochlear nucleus. Now, if you look at the cerebellum, there is a cerebellum surrounding the brainstem. There is a superior cerebellar peduncle that connects with the midbrain, middle cerebellar peduncle with the pons, inferior cerebellar peduncle with the medulla. So, the vestibular nuclei, which is here, from the ears, inner ear, it is receiving through the vestibular nerve all the signals. So, what this vestibular nucleus will do? It will send all this information to the inferior cerebellar peduncle, it will send it to the cerebellum. Now, to receive that information coming from the vestibular nucleus, because cerebellum is associated with balance. Vestibular, what we listen, our semicircular canals, they are also associated with balance. So, two balancing controlling units, right? They need to communicate with each other. How do they do that? From the inner ear semicircular canal send information to the vestibular nucleus. Vestibular nucleus sends information through inferior cerebellar peduncle to reach to the cerebellum. So, in the cerebellum, which part of the cerebellum does it send to? Cerebellum also has got different components. Flocculo-nodular lobe of the cerebellum is the one which receives that information, is what you have to basically remember. So, the vestibular nuclei, they send the afferents to the flocculo-nodular lobe via inferior cerebellar peduncle. In the flocculo-nodular lobe, the Purkinje cells are there. They send the efferents back to the vestibular nucleus, And the vestibular nucleus modulates the orientation of the eye, and for that the vestibular nucleus has got connections with the 6th cranial nerve, that is the one which is controlling the extraocular muscles. So, that is how what we are listening and semicircular information is told to the cerebellum. Cerebellum once more tells to the vestibular nucleus, and vestibular nucleus will have connections with the 6th cranial nerve nucleus. This is a very important reflex called vestibulo-ocular reflex mediated by vestibulo-cerebellar pathway is what you have to remember. So, here you have the vestibular nuclei. Once more, let us reinforce the concept. And typically, the vestibular nuclei, what are they doing? The vestibular nuclei, they through the inferior cerebellar peduncle will update whatever the information that they are getting from the vestibular sensory receptors to the vestibular ganglion. Whatever the information that they are getting, they are sending it to the flocculo-nodular lobe. Once more, flocculo-nodular lobe, the cells, the Purkinje cells process them, and they send back the information to the vestibular nucleus back. And this vestibular nucleus has a connection with the cranial nerve 3, 4 and 6 which are controlling the eye movements, and also vestibular nucleus will send the information to the spinal cord, so that the body movements are controlled, and vestibular nucleus also sends to the autonomic nervous system, and that is the reason few people who are traveling in a fast moving vehicle, they get a nausea and vomiting, motion sickness. Why do they get it? Typically, their vestibular sensory receptors are telling to vestibular nuclei, and vestibular nuclei telling to the that they are moving in the car to the flocculonodular lobe. Flocculonodular lobe once more telling it, processing the information and telling it back to the vestibular nuclei. Vestibular nuclei have a relationship with the autonomic targets, and that lead to development of the nausea, which is the basis for the motion sickness, is what you have to ultimately remember. So let us look this from a different perspective. From a different perspective. The feedback projections from the flocculonodular lobe and the fastigial nucleus, it goes to the vestibular complex, and the cerebello-vestibular fibers even go while from the cerebellum fibers are coming back to the vestibular nucleus in the medulla. They form what is called as a juxta-restiform body. So how is juxta-restiform body is formed basically? So you have, can you give me the board? You have the inner ear, you have the semicircular canals, and they are sending the fibers to the vestibular nucleus. From the vestibular nucleus to inferior cerebellar peduncle, information is going to the cerebellum, and from the cerebellum once more the fibers are coming out and coming back to the vestibular nucleus, and while they are coming back they form what is called as juxta-restiform body, is what you have to ultimately remember. Now doctor, if you look at the vestibular nuclei, what are all the places will they send their efferents? They receive it from the fastigial nucleus in the cerebellum, information, vestibular nuclei in the medulla. Don't forget, vestibular nucleus is 8th. 8th nucleus is located in medulla. So from the medulla, they have a connection with the cranial nerves, and they will pass a pathway called vestibulospinal tract, which is one of the extrapyramidal tracts. They pass the fibers to the spinal cord, and also they pass the fibers to the thalamus. Thalamus is on the top, and from the thalamus the fibers will go to the cerebral cortex. That's how even the big boss is being informed by the vestibular nucleus about all the information that it got from the vestibular nucleus and the cerebellum. The vestibular nucleus will send the information to thalamus. Thalamus tells the big boss, who is the motor cortex and sensory cortex, is what you have to ultimately remember. So these are the things, doctor. Yes, Shivram Modi is asking, sir, when we will discuss NEET 2019? Karenge? See, sometimes after exam is over, doctor, discussing that question paper immediately will make us feel sick. Oh, I did this wrong, I did that wrong, I did this wrong. Do we need all that trauma? Not now. Maybe after 1 month, when we lick our wounds, now we are free. Then that time we will review. No hurry, right? If you have done the exam extremely good, you don't need to go back and check the questions. If you have done the exam extremely bad, wait 1 more month, we will आराम से discuss करेंगे. नहीं तो now you will be unnecessarily traumatizing your mind. So just relax yourself, let the results come. Results is always a surprise. It's a relative competition. So meanwhile, don't become completely out of touch of subjects. Every day evening, participate in this wonderful evening, and be positive, optimistic, that the result is going to be good. That is how you are going to win the exam. Now doc, these vestibulo-cerebellar fibers, how do they enter into the cerebellum? Through inferocerebellar peduncle, and there is some justa restiform body when they are passing through the inferocerebellar peduncle, and they ultimately, where do they terminate? That is the examiner's question. Flocculonodular lobe is what you have to ultimately remember. Once more, cerebellum mein, how many parts are there in the cerebellum? It's a very important question. Very good. Lahari says, sir, absolutely right, sir. Abhi wo janjat kyun? Abhi wo dukh kyun? There is a song, no? Dukhi man mera. So, why to insult our own mind by saying that we did poorly in the exam? No problem. 650 topics अगर आप revision करें तो UMedico app के ऊपर, and every day you are motivated to study, nobody will stop you from getting the seat. Perseverance, doctor, everything is perseverance. 10 times you fail also, if you are constantly believing you are going to be the winner, 11th time is there to win. But do we have that courage to get multiple times slapped but still believe in ourselves and get the victory? That is the whole magic of winning any pursuit of life, right? So, you have an anterior cerebellar lobe. There is a posterior cerebellar lobe. Here you have a flocculonodular lobe. What are the three peduncles? You have a superior, middle and inferior. Inferior is the one which connects the cerebellum with the medulla. Middle cerebellar peduncle connects the pons with cerebellum, and superior cerebellar peduncle connects midbrain with cerebellum. That's what you need to remember. So once more you can see there are fastigial nuclei, and you have the vestibulo-cerebellar and cerebello-vestibular. All these fibers pass through a bundle called juxta-restiform body is what you need to remember. And if you look at the fastigial nuclei, among the various deep nuclei that are there in the cerebellum, they are the most medial part of the nuclei is what you need to remember. And fastigial should be remembered because fastigial nuclei, flocculonodular lobe. These are the two words you have to remember because these are the two in the cerebellum which are directly connected with the vestibular nucleus in the medulla. That is the reason you need to remember. Whenever we say vestibular nucleus in medulla, what will you remember? Fastigial nucleus and flocculonodular lobe in the cerebellum is what you have to ultimately remember.